very good evening to you and welcome to this Friday's edition of the Watchdog. My name is Vuyo Mvoko. Crime statistics released earlier today by Police Minister Bheki Cele paint a horrific picture of our country. 5,760 people murdered in 3 months. More than 10,000 cases of rape in 3 months. There's absolutely no reason for any South African to accept this level of violence and suffering. But do those are charged with the responsibility of doing something about it even know where to begin? Well, my first guest this evening is National Police Commissioner Kehla Stole. After that interview, the Department of Women and NGOs on what should be done to stop the massive assault on women. We also speak to police unions about what they think should be done to deal with the problems that we are facing. The Watchdog starts now. Now, before we speak to the National Commissioner, let's take you through some of those statistics. The murder rate up by 66.2%. Rape up by 72.4%. Contact crimes, that is assault and grievous bodily harm, also up by 76,936 cases. Cash in transit up. Burglaries and stock theft both down. Commissioner Kehla Stole joins us now. Good evening, Commissioner, and thanks very much for your time. Take us back, if you will, to the moment your team had done all the number crunching and you realized that the picture you gave to the country today was what we saw today. What went through your mind? I mean, how did you feel? Were you surprised? Were you shocked? Were you indifferent? Did you expect it?
Okay, thank you very much, Will. Yeah, firstly, let me start by indicating that I think I was, and yeah, as the minister explained it, we're coming from a period where we release crime stats from what he referred to as a crime holiday due to the lockdown levels, and we're comparing them with a quarter that where there was level 1, and as a result we experienced those huge differences which were skewed.
But the sheer numbers, Commissioner, the numbers, let's forget the comparison for a second, because one could argue that, I mean, it's really a bit academic. I mean, when you look at the numbers, how did you feel when you saw these numbers, the first time you saw these numbers?
Yeah, no, thank you, Goy. I think the numbers are unacceptably high. And obviously because these are numbers that talks to the lives of people vis-a-vis their safety. And hence, they required a lot from the police to do in order to provide a response. So the numbers, I agree with you, they were shocking, yes.
But
unacceptable.
How did the National Commissioner of Police feel whether the first time you saw these numbers?
Okay, maybe let me start by saying, remember, as the police, right from the Constitution to the Police Act, we are responsible for the creation of a safe and secure. And when you have such numbers, you then begin begin to feel I have not to the South African population. And as a result, we then need to come up with more other effective methods and efforts to enhance their safety and change the situation.
You know, Commissioner, I asked you 3 times how you feel, and you can't tell us how you feel. And that, just from a personal point of view, I think is what is the problem, because you seem indifferent, you know. You don't feel the way many South Africans have taken to social media today and expressed their views, you know, their feelings about this situation. And you just seems like, you know, just another day at work. Okay, Commissioner, we're going to take a quick ad break and try and re-establish this line. It's not really helping us at the moment. National Police Commissioner Kehla Sithole, on the back of those statistics that were released this afternoon, I mean, 5,760 people murdered in just 3 months, more than 10,000 cases of rape in 3 months. I mean, it's a situation, as I was saying to him, that you know, no South African should be accepting. The violence, the suffering is just way too much. We hope we're going to be able to re-establish that line, but we're going to take a quick break and see if things will be better after this short break. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, we're in conversation with the National Police Commissioner Kehla Sithole. We're having some connection problems a little earlier. We hope that this time that line is stable enough for us to be able to continue with that conversation. Commissioner, I'm going to play a clip from that briefing earlier that you were part of. Now, this a clip is from the minister, you know, as he was giving that presentation. Something struck me about it, but let's listen to it first.
I repeat, we cannot compare the same period of this year and last year due to the skewed and abnormal crime trends caused by the different levels of lockdown. If we are to understand this crime picture that we are presenting to you today.
Now, it's the latter part, Commissioner, which says if we are to understand, you know, the picture that you brought to the country's attention today. Are we to deduce from what the minister said that right now, as you and I are speaking, the police have no full appreciation of what is behind these numbers?
Okay, thank you very much for the question. Let me indicate to you that the police do have full appreciation of the numbers, but the minister was trying to explain the reality in the comparison of the quotas in the different years. I think there's part of the statement where he actually indicated that as the police, we cannot sit and look at this particular situation. We needed to pull up our socks so that we provide a response. So the numbers are different, but the comparison, I think he wanted us to be realistic as we do the comparison. But the numbers need a response because it's numbers where members of the public has become.
And Commissioner, that's why, I mean, right from the start, I said perhaps we shouldn't focus so much on the comparison, you know, because then it detracts, in my view, from the issues that, or what we should be confronting right now as to what lies behind the picture that we are seeing and how to deal with the crisis that is facing us. So hence I said, after listening to that, that I'm more concerned about the latter part of that particular clip. In other words, the understanding whether the South African police services have a finger on the nature of the problem, the causes of the problems that we are seeing. Are you able to say to us, we know exactly what is happening before we get to what you're doing or you're going to be doing about it? Do you understand why we are where we are as the South African Police Service?
Yes, let me indicate it in this way of policing. We do have the understanding and appreciation that there's some of our communities who lacks what I can refer to you as a service delivery access in the form of police stations and satellite police stations, because as and when communities are affected by crime, they need to have access to service delivery. So we do have overloaded station profiles where we have communities that are not necessarily covered because of the extended geographical that is stretched. But secondly, our numbers presently are not enough to extend to every segregation increase, and that is 100. And we are providing a response to such hotspots. We have also studied the modus operandi. We do understand where to respond. In some of the areas, we have responded. Hence, we do have other crime, specific crimes where we have provided to stabilize. But then again, on the side of the communities, there's other issues that we need to be working on.
Okay, this line is really bad. We're going to take another quick ad break, and we're going to take the commissioner on the phone. So we'll have a hybrid that's coming up in a short while. Welcome back. We're still in conversation with the National Police Commissioner. After a few glitches, we now have him on the telephone line. Commissioner, apologies for what's happening. None of us seems to have a finger on what is actually happening. Now, before we took that quick ad break because of those technical problems, you are alluding to a technical glitch, to resource constraints, inadequate facilities, which are hampering your efforts to actually deal with this problem. My question then would be, have you been able to take this matter up with, the president, for example, because elsewhere in the world, confronted with the kinds of numbers we are talking about today, 5,760 people murdered in 3 months, more than 10,000 cases of rape in just 3 months. Elsewhere in the world, the president perhaps would have called you in and said, Commissioner, what is going on here? Are you saying we're never going to see that because, the leader of the executive is actually aware that you are constrained? You can't do what you are expected to do because you have serious resource constraints.
Yeah, let me respond in this manner. I think the minister, during the day when he presented the crime stats, he also related to the budget cuts. But it's a matter that we are both dealing with, which we are also then in a process of escalating. But on the other hand, we are also taking note of the fact that the whole country is facing fiscal constraints. And as a result of that, we have come up with other initiatives pertaining to the strategic deployment of resources in the distribution and redistribution process. Presently, we are trying to capacitate the production level so that we've got more boots on the ground.
Why was this, matter not escalated before? Because it's just that the situation has gotten worse now, but we were never in a good space to begin with. So why hasn't it been escalated before?
Look, the minister spoke during the day, but the escalation between the two of us started before we released, that is the crime stats. And remember, if you have to escalate a resource issue, you also need to plan very well so that you can point out the areas that require attention. So the process of escalation started before, and as we speak currently, it is in progress. But we are also bringing other efforts where we do the distribution and redistribution.
About a week ago, Commissioner, the President was appeared before the state capture inquiry, and he recounted, the period when he was the Deputy President of the country and was also in charge of the war room that was responsible for turning around or looking into all the ESCOM problems. And among the things he said, or the revelations there, was that a chief executive officer who was appointed to run ESCOM, a public servant who went in there with a very good reputation and history, presented to the president a turnaround plan, which the president didn't even look at. By which time, this is my reading, by that time, which is my reading of this whole situation, he had made up his mind about the fact that he felt that Siriso Matona was not the person to run such an organization as big and as critical to our economy as ESCOM. Here's why I am raising this particular example. What if, even though you may have escalated, you and the minister may have escalated this issue now, what if the president has made up his mind and feels that you are simply not up to the job? And then he calls you and says, Commissioner, tell me what you can still do. Puts you in his office and says, can you still do something to turn the situation around? What would you say to him if you said you had just a couple of minutes to tell him what you could do potentially if you were to be given the resources that you're talking about? What would those be? What would your response be?
Okay, yeah. Firstly, maybe let me acknowledge the President as the Commander-in-Chief of the Security Forces and indicate to you that there are certain reports that we do escalate directly to him, and he gives an ear, and he prioritizes security in the country. But if the President would provide any resources by now, I already pronounced the turnaround vision, which is in progress at the present moment and is in execution. And those particular resources, I would then immediately translate them into action by taking them immediately into the areas which I can refer to as the high crime rate areas, and including the hotspot, so that we are then able to provide the safety needs of the communities of South Africa. But at the same time, again, we also need more resources to provide an investigative response, so that we take the strategic criminals behind bars. So I think there are plans in place which we can immediately operationalize or enhance the ones that are current. So, but there are resources which are there at the moment that we just need to strategically deploy and provide a response.
Let's just say he acts pretty much the way he acted in the example that I gave you. And after that response says to you, well, I've seen what you've put out there, and I hear you. You know, your representation, you and the minister. And then he still says, you know what? I still think that a lot of fingers are pointing at you. And then he says to you, I'm not saying resign, but I'm saying if I were you, I would, for the sake of this nation, resign. What would your response be? It's a hypothetical situation, yes, but what would your response be under those circumstances?
Yeah, I'm not sure whether you're asking the question on behalf of the president, but I would like to believe that there would always be a rationale behind the question. He shall have used a particular situation to substantiate it. And I think I can respond to the question based on the situation created that triggered the question.
There are people who say you probably have no time fighting crime because you are busy fighting your own survival battles. How's your relationship with the minister?
My relationship with the minister, I have repeatedly indicated that at professional level it is average and it is normal. We haven't started sharing a relationship beyond the professional lines, but at the present moment, we are working together and we are doing everything together what is prescribed by the laws that are governing this relationship.
Do you think that the Supreme Court of Appeal judgment has helped that relationship?
Yeah, remember, whether we have a judgment or not, there are certain responsibilities of the minister which must be fulfilled by the minister, and there are responsibilities that are supposed to be fulfilled by myself. If the minister does his work or I do my work, nothing is personal between the two of us. I think in front of us there's South Africa, there's the South Africans, and we must create their safety. So the judgment does not change anything, but it's a judgment that is based on a specific issue and outcome.
But then, I mean, it does or should affect your relationship. I mean, if the minister has written to you and feels that he's not getting answers to very obvious questions, some of which actually comes from the a person you're saying is the commander-in-chief of the security forces. So obviously, I mean, if there are questions to be asked about your conduct, about your behavior, and the courts confirm, that indeed those questions should have been asked. So that is bound to actually affect your relationship with the minister and whether you should, in fact, continue as National Police Commissioner.
No, let me explain it this way. Remember, the minister has got an obligation to perform his job as an executive and account to the president. And for him to explain anything to the president, he must ask me for explanation. That is his job, which we cannot change. And then secondly, I also equally have the obligation to send or to give clarification to the minister. If the minister is asking such clarification, nothing can be personal because it's purely within the prescripts. And secondly, I don't think I've got anything to hide or treat as personal because I am a career policeman and I am disciplined, and I think my work must be done within the ambit of that particular framework. Up until this far, I haven't taken anything personal pertaining to the judgment. But secondly, I have also taken the same judgment on review.
Okay. Commissioner, that's where we're going to leave it for tonight. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
After the break, the Department of Women's Shoki Chabalala and Director from NGO Rise Up Against Gender-Based Violence on what should be done. Let's welcome Shoki Chabalala, Deputy Director General at the Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities. We also have Mandisa Kanyile, who's Director from NGO Rise Up Against Gender-Based Violence. Good evening to both of you. Thanks very much for your time. I don't know, this is a horrific picture. 5,760 people murdered in just 3 months in this country. More than 10,000 cases of rape in 3 months. Mandisa?
Look, we're a very violent country. We actually average over 330,000 cases per year of assault GBH. And the thing is, the minister said that indeed the picture is skewed due to the fact that we're in hard lockdown in the same period last year. But bear in mind that the statistics for hard lockdown, level 5 and level 4 for the same period are 7,296 sexual offenses, right? Versus 12,702 this year. So as much as percentage-wise it seems different, but it's still a large amount of people for people that were locked in their homes. We're a really violent society.
In fact, that's why I was staying away from the comparisons. Well, I'm just looking at the sheer numbers and say that's enough for everyone to stand up and saying, "That's fine, no further. This can't continue."
Most definitely. And when you actually look at the data around these particular cases and you see how many of them happened in the home, how many of them happened within people that you know intimately within a space, how many of those, for example, 164 of those murders were specifically attributed towards domestic violence within that 3-month period. And as a country, we've been averaging between 52 to 55,000 sexual offenses per year anyway. So 10,000 rapes isn't really out of the ordinary, which is a horrible thing to say, but it is true if you look at where we've been in terms of our trajectory of sexual violence over the past 7-8 years.
Shoki Chabalala, just your thoughts as you were listening up to the minister or going through that presentation this afternoon. Please unmute yourself.
Apologies.
Okay.
I mean, for us, the statistics as released today signals a call to heightened action by all. And I'm using the word deliberately heightened action because there has been numerous calls to action. But this time, the National Strategic Plan that has been approved by Cabinet actually says we need to harness all to respond to the crisis. And I think that is the crux. And this should be like the onion ring, where at the most center part of it, it begins with you to take charge. And I'm referring this to men in particular, who are our brothers, who are our partners, husbands, you name it, our fathers, uncles. It is about time that they take charge and lead and take responsibility. But at the same time, it requires the family to also come on board, society, companies, private sector, you name it. Everybody should begin to come and assist us in tackling the scourge, because it has been acknowledged as a scourge and it has been declared as a crisis by the president and as a twin pandemic because of the issue of COVID-19. So we are not taking away the impact that COVID-19 could have had to this incident, but at the same time, we are saying an integrated approach, one that is multisectoral in nature, should actually be upscaled. There's no way we can deal with this matter as government alone. So we appreciate the fact that the police are acknowledging that this is also a problem. And I think what we should be looking at now, and in assisting without just condemning or criticizing, is to reach out to the police and pilot a model police station, one that is gender responsive and one that you can replicate across the country. Once we are aware that these are the findings, this is what a model police station should look like. So we should be pulling together as a collective here and working with them. Otherwise, there's no way we are going to pull through this if we keep apportioning blame to one sector or the other. The entire criminal justice system should come on board. And the National Strategic Plan is actually purporting for full accountability, for coordination and for leadership. So the very senior managers in all the sectors within the criminal justice system should take full responsibility and provide the necessary leadership. But Pillar 2 of the National Strategic Plan is actually making a call that we should address the whole issue of a prevention strategy. And we have commenced with that work. We should be consulting in due course with the public so that everybody makes their contribution to the prevention strategy, because it has to address issues of children. It has to address those issues that are affecting women, issues of substance abuse, but the whole structural drivers of gender-based violence and femicide should be addressed in this prevention strategy. So we do believe that it's not lost in terms of the statistics that we are having, but we should really be responsive, more than being responsive, and be agile and be responsive in a manner that seeks to tackle the scourge and deal with it once and for all. And if we redirect our resources as government to prevention, we will have less incidents of us being responsive at all times, because most of the time we sharpen the saw in a manner that is responsive, and we are not sharpening the saw in a manner that is proactive. And I think as government, our strategic posture should change. We have assumed why strategic.
Why is it not changing? Why is your posture not changing? You see, between the three of us, you, me, and Mandisa, you enjoy proximity to, the people who matter, who should be doing something about these things. If we're talking about a model police station, for example, right? Police, treasury, the president, everyone is able to be in the same room and actually talk about the things that you are raising. If the problem is with the entire criminal justice system, Cabinet is where all these ministers meet with their directors general, and where orders can actually be given, for the very implementation of the things that you are raising. I guess what I'm trying to say is, for people who are outside, of government, it becomes difficult to understand what you are saying when you're saying we're calling upon, we should, when we trust you to be the people who actually do that.
Okay. let me put it this way. Our strategic posture has been repositioned in such a manner that we are now playing a much more regulatory role than playing an advocacy role. All along, we've been playing an advocacy role, but that doesn't come with that enforcement part. Now, because we are playing a regulatory role, we have come up with not only strategies, but we've come up with guidelines as to how things should be done. We are coming up with norms and minimum standards of what is actually required in government. But we have ensured that these issues, as purported in the National Strategic Plan, find their strategic path in the annual performance plans of the government departments. And it is for that reason that government departments have pledged already 21 billion for the implementation of the 6 pillars over the MTF period, which is the medium-term expenditure framework. And that for us, it's a step in the right direction. But we are following the big monies because where the economic aspect is located, which is Pillar 5 of the NSP that talks to economic power, we are analyzing those master plans of government. We are co-leading with the presidency in this regard. And in analyzing those sector master plans, we are trying to check to what extent are women benefiting in this whole area of social transformation or economic transformation. Because if we don't do that, ordinarily, women will not benefit. We will be coming up with recommendations. We will be hosting a webinar for an economic assembly for women, where we will be bringing to everybody our findings of those sector master plans. If they're gender blind, we will be indicating that they're gender blind. We will come up with those recommendations and proposed interventions, because at the end of the day, in that transformation chapter of each sector master plan, there are budgets, and those budgets ought to be now translated into practice, and we really put our money where our mouth is. So we've really begun to turn the tide. It's happening. It may not be at a pace that is desired by everyone, but definitely we are now shaking the tree, for lack of a better word. And all the director generals are aware. This is a matter of the FOSAT cluster, which is a forum of South African DGs, where we present the progress that we are making on the National Strategic Plan, where we highlight the challenges that we are experiencing, and we are naming and shaming. If departments are not improving or reporting, we are naming and shaming, and the president is fully aware. But we believe that when he has those one-on-ones with those specific ministers and those director generals, those issues will be raised and they will be escalated at that level. These issues are in the medium-term strategic framework. They are in the ministers' performance agreements, so no one is spared from implementing the National Strategic Plan.
Mandisa, I mean, you are still in the advocacy a space that Shoki and her colleagues have been removed from. From your vantage point, where are the blockages? Where are the stumbling blocks, and how do we deal with those?
One of the biggest blockages for me, I believe, is everything is underfunded when it comes to women's work and when it comes to women's rights issues. From the CGE being underfunded, to the Department of Women being underfunded, to the police being underfunded, to Zele care centers being underfunded. We have a funding problem and a funding crisis in particular when it comes to these issues. The police the whole day were, and I'll use the word whining, about the fact that they were not able to bring an additional 15,000 boots on the ground that they would have liked to bring on. And as a result, this is the reason for their poor performance. Now, if we're going to be constantly be given excuses around the fact that there's no money, there's undercapacity, and that's all due to resources, then the government needs to play their role and get those resources in check. You cannot be living in a situation where your citizens, only 55%, based on a survey done by Stats SA around how we perceive South African police service, only 55% of South Africans that were in the survey said that they would call the police if they witnessed a crime. Now, if we look at the issue of Noscelo, who was butchered just the other day by her partner, the people that were in the apartment did not call the police. Now, if victims and people who witness crimes are not calling the police, how do we expect there to actually be a criminal justice system that is responsive to this kind of crime. We need to look at the fact that we've lost confidence in our government because of the slow pace of work. Yes, I agree, we do have a national strategic plan, which, by the way, women of this country had to fight for. Right? It didn't come willingly. It came under duress through feminist activism. Right? We do have a national strategic plan. We do currently have a GBV fund. We do have all of these things that are slowly coming into play, but they're not coming at the right pace. And we still have bodies literally dropping on a day-to-day basis. And it's really frustrating for women on the ground as to how do we actually see substantive change? Where are these behavioral change programs that you are talking about, where you are saying that the strategy is about prevention? What are we seeing on the ground? We're seeing the same government saying, do not have gatherings and actually have dialogues with these men in established places, rather have webinars. How many people attend webinars? How many people have the data to attend webinars? How many people actually have access to links to attend these webinars? Are we reaching the masses of this country around the messaging around GBV prevention? And I really think that that's one of the biggest deficits that we have. We have a lot of talk. We have a lot of engagement. We do have a positive relationship where civil society is trying to work with government and other sectors. I absolutely do say that. But the reality is that the pace is slow. The pace is slow on all sides. And we are failing the women and children of this country.
Quick last word from you, Shoki, on what needs to be done and the role specifically of the rest of us outside of government.
I first want to respond to Mandisa's issue. Mandisa, it is correct to say we have crafted the National Strategic Plan jointly with civil society. And we need to appreciate that if civil society at that time did not march and ask for that National Strategic Plan, we wouldn't be where we are at. But we did have a plan at that time. However, you were asking that, can it be reviewed? And can we pump in more resources and make sure that at the end of the day, it is completely responsive to all the issues that are facing women. And we really appreciate and want to commend civil society for being a partner. For the first time, government is working with civil society. We do have pillar collaboratives, and that is one of the things that I am appreciative of, because within those pillar collaboratives, these are voluntary structures between government, civil society, labor, private sector, and everybody, where we all meet, unpack issues in each pillar, and look at what are the quick wins, what are the low-hanging fruits, what is it that we can deliver on and report on. We've even developed a website jointly, and we are beginning to report to the public on the work that we are doing as a collaborative. And for me, that is a step in the right direction. When it comes to budget cuts, as said earlier on, and that there's not enough money, I agree. Yes, we are constrained financially, but we have started to explore innovative funding. The work that we are doing, we're not doing it alone. We are working with development partners. We do have private sector coming on board, and they have raised funding. You were part of a session today where we were actually giving an update on where we are at with this private sector funding. They have made requests for proposals, and we are urging people to apply, particularly those women in the most rural areas. We are saying we will prioritize them mostly because they are in the periphery, they are forgotten. And even if it means some of their business proposals have to do with asking for even data for them to participate in these webinars, I think we will recommend and consider supporting those. But at the end of the day, if we don't do this in a collaborative manner and pulling together, we are not going to succeed in tackling this scourge. And we will continue to push for resources. In conclusion, I must say, we always say this department is almost resourced to fail. Our budget is very minimal. Our structure is small compared to other bigger departments. But because we realize that there is this gap, we've pulled these development partners, and they have come in handy. Development partners like UN Women, UNICEF, UNFPA, they are really pulling their part and pulling their weight and working with us. And we are truly appreciative of that relationship. We'll continue to advocate for more resources, but we want to make an appeal and echo the sentiments of the President to the private sector that make your donations to the private sector funding, because we're relying on your donations for the private sector fund to be viable and for it to be able to fund those NPOs or civil society organizations adequately. And we are pledging our commitment to continue in tackling this scourge together with yourselves. There is no way we can pull it on our own as government. It is a societal problem, but we have the primary responsibility to lead in this regard.
Special thanks to Shoki Chabalala and Mandisa Kanyila. Up next, we try to find out how police themselves feel about the statistics we saw today and what they regard to be their role going forward. Welcome back, and if you just joined us, we're talking about the crime statistics that were released today by Police Minister Bheki Cele. 5,760 people murdered in 3 months, more than 10,000 cases of rape in 3 months, murder rate up, rape up, cash in transit up, contact crimes, assault and grievous bodily harm all up. Let's ask Pop Crew spokesperson Richard Mamabolo what they make of today's statistics. Richard?
Good evening to you, Vuyo, and the viewers. Thanks for the opportunity. I think, of course, the statistics have shown a high rise as compared to many other previous years, with murder rising by 66%. But however, I think one of the points we should obviously consider is the fact that we need to obviously look into the period where in some of these, these recent statistics were recorded. It was between a period between April and June, and you would have known that there had been an extraordinary eventuality in the country wherein we had lawlessness, we had looting, and part of those events actually impacted on the levels of statistics we have. So it is quite concerning, and it's not something that should be taken lightly. However, when you consider the general statistics, you would as well note that considering the stats that have been issued over the past years within similar times, it should firstly be pointed out that with regards to what happened last year, you'll remember that last year the stats came out at a time when we coincided with level 5 of the lockdown. That is why you would have seen some of the statistics going down, but considering the gender-based violence went up because that obviously happens within the close confines of a household. So the numbers are up, and we're shocked that they keep increasing to this level. The 5-year period again demonstrates that there has been an increase. Well, there's a general increasing trend within with the crime statistics, and part of our concern is the fact that statistics provide a platform for the SAPS and all law enforcement officials to determine their budgets, to obviously look into planning around how they're going to deal with specific conditions within specific communities, and of course ensure that there are sufficient allocation of resources and planning, of course, reviewing the work that they've been doing.
Other than the resources, what else do your members think needs to be done?
Look, Vuyo, I think a lot has been said, really. I mean, you remember in the President's State of the Nation address in 2019, he mentioned that we need to ensure that within the next decade, we have violent crimes. And of course, these are multiplicity of criminal activities that happen within the country. However, if there's no willingness on the part of government to actually fund such projects, not much will change, really, because at the end of the day, police officers have got a lot of underlying challenges that they are facing. You know, the uneven allocation of resources. We've seen in the recent past as well, there have been attacks on police stations. So people generally feel that when police cannot respond to their concerns on time, therefore police are not doing their work and they are not concerned about ensuring that communities are kept safe. However, you consider the fact that due to this uneven allocation of resources, shortages of members, working with 2 members per night, the vehicles not being available, all those factors, of course, have got a huge contribution into the manner in which the SAPS can fight crime in the country.
Okay, that's where we're going to leave it for this evening. Thanks very much for your time, Richard Mamabolo, who is the spokesperson of Pop Crew, the police union. And that's where we're going to leave it this evening and this week. Do have a great night and a beautiful and safe weekend.